Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today, we are continuing our ongoing coverage of the war between the Russian Federation and Ukraine. Over the past 24 hours, we have seen Russian cruise missiles and ballistic missile strikes, cruise missile strikes, specifically against the city of Izmail. This sets right on the Danube River, very, very close to the Romanian border. This is Romania, this is Ukraine, and this is the port river city in question. Now, the Russians targeted port facilities, and the Ukrainians are also reporting that the Russians targeted grain elevators and possibly silos located in this area as well. Now, we have seen some fairly significant post initial strike explosions that could be something other than grain. Is it possible that the Russians were targeting a possible munition shipment to the Ukrainians? Possibly. Now, with that being said, we also know obviously that grain silos have at times exploded. The atmosphere within the grain silo can be in an explosive type environment because of the grain, the dust, and the air that is in the silo. I don't know a lot about the mechanism for that, but again, it does happen. But we do know the Russians have hit targets in this city, a multitude of strikes against the port facilities and possibly other targets in the port city of Izmail. Now, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, obviously is very upset by the proximity of the Russian strikes. Again, very, very close, within hundreds of yards of a NATO member state, Romania. Now, in all likelihood, obviously the Romanians are assisting the Ukrainians in its ongoing war effort against the Russians, as are the Poles and other Western nation states. So obviously, other weapons and supplies are mainly coming through Poland and some other areas. We're not sure just how significantly Romania plays a part in the ongoing war effort. And in all likelihood, we believe that Romania is shipping weapon shipments across its border into Ukraine, assisting the Ukrainians. The territorial changes over the last 24 hours, there essentially has been none. We are seeing what is indicative of an acknowledgement by the Ukrainians that their most renewed mechanized offensive has failed. We understand that up to 50% of the Bradley armored infantry fighting vehicles that were delivered to the Ukrainians may have already been destroyed in ongoing fighting. So it wouldn't surprise me at all to see another shipment of Bradley armored infantry fighting vehicles to the Ukrainians. We do know that they're in the process of receiving the M1A1 Abrams from the U.S. And I wanted to pull up here very quickly the arms transfers that are continuing to the Ukrainian military. And it continues to be incredibly significant in terms of the armaments that are being delivered by various Western states. So I'm going to go all the way down, and what I want to look at is the reported number of weapon systems that the United States has delivered reportedly thus far. And again, it is just a massive amount when you look at just how much has been delivered. I mean, essentially, you could arm an entire military with just what has been handed over by the United States. And we'll start at the very top here, and I apologize, it took me a little bit to bring this up. And so right now, the United States has essentially donated billions and billions, tens of billions of dollars. And at this point, I don't even think we here in the United States really understand just how much capital and how much weaponry has been handed over to the Ukrainians, even more so than what I'm about to talk about, essentially. So in terms of tanks, the United States is in the process of delivering 31 M1 Abrams, and we've talked about that before. Through third-party contracts, the United States has purchased 45 T-72Bs and are going to hand those over, or have handed over those to the Ukrainians. The U.S. has handed over 186 M2A2 Bradleys, 300 M113s, 200 armored medical treatment vehicles, 250 M117 ASVs, that's to be delivered, 157 Strykers, those deliveries have started March of 2023 and continue. 4 Bradley fire support team vehicles, 10 command post vehicles, 440 international M1224 Max Pro, these are MRAPs, another 37 Cougars, and 289 unknown variants of other types of mine-resistant armored personnel carriers have been delivered. Infantry mobility vehicles, 2,000 Humvees have been handed over by the United States to the Ukrainians. 100 plus light tactical vehicles, other vehicles, 68 trucks and 124 trailers to transport heavy equipment, 6 armored utility trucks, 100 armored medical treatment vehicles, 89 heavy fuel tankers and 105 fuel trailers, 8 logistics support vehicles, total artillery. The United States has handed over 180 155mm M777 howitzers, 72 105mm howitzers. The U.S. has handed over 18 155mm Paladin M109A6s that occurred in May of 2023. Multiple launch rocket systems, 20 HIMARS have been delivered. Surface-to-air missiles, 8 NASAMS batteries, 2 Hawk MIM-23 Hawk firing units. An unknown number of Hawk missile Phase 3 missiles have been delivered. 28 N2WQ-1 Avengers, a Patriot missile battery, 9 counter unmanned aerial vehicle systems, over 2,000 Stinger anti-aircraft systems, over 10,000 Javelin anti-tank, anti-armor systems, over 70,000 other anti-armor systems and munitions, over 4,000 tube-launched optically tracked or TOW missile systems. Now, on that issue of the amount of anti-tank guided weapon systems, look, the Ukrainians are now firing, they have so many of these anti-tank guided weapon systems, they're firing them at individual infantry soldiers. There has been a recent video of a Russian soldier attempting to run an alleged Russian soldier attempting to run across a field, and a Ukrainian anti-tank guided weapon system is fired at this one soldier. Now, obviously, if you're able to fire a anti-tank guided weapon system costing tens of thousands of dollars against an individual soldier, well, you've got a lot of those anti-tank weapon systems. Other missiles, 2 AGM-84 Harpoon, AGM-88 Harms, an unknown amount have been delivered. An unknown amount of laser-guided rockets, believed to be the APKWS system. RIM-7 missiles for air defense. Over 6,000 Zuni aircraft rockets. Over 77,000 Hydra 70 aircraft rockets. And this is interesting, too, what has been handed over to the Ukrainians. The ADM-160 MALD decoy missile was handed over to the Ukrainians back in May of 2023. There was not a lot of discussion about that, but those are fairly advanced systems that pretend to be cruise missiles and what have you, and are designed to draw additional Russian fire as opposed to going after the actual missile that the Ukrainians have fired. Electronic warfare equipment, various electronic jamming equipment, Vampire counter unmanned aerial systems. That is part of that APKWS system, the laser guided. What they essentially do is take 70 millimeter Hydra rockets, then they basically turn those systems into a precision guided weapon system, either fired from a helicopter or fired from a ground-based systems. Well, the Ukrainians are using the ground-based systems right now. Over 100 Switchblade 300 kamikaze drones, 10 Switchblade 600s, 300 various other types of Switchblade kamikaze zone drones, 1,801 Phoenix Ghosts to be delivered, various RQ 20 Pumas, 15 Boeing Scan Eagles, Jump 20 reconnaissance UAVs, Tillis 600 reconnaissance UAVs, Cyberlux K8 reconnaissance UAV, Penguin reconnaissance UAVs, radars, 26 AN/TPQ-36 Firefinder weapon locating radars, and a host of other systems including AN/TPQ-37s and AN/MPQ-64 Sentinel. Over 70 other counter-artillery and counter-mortar radars have been delivered. Various engineering equipment, including mine-clearing line charge systems. Ships and other underwater vehicles, 16 Mark IV patrol boats, 10 Dauntless Sea Ark patrol boats, 2 small unit Riverine craft, 40 armored Riverine boats, 47 120 millimeter mortars, 10 82 millimeter mortars, 67 81 millimeter mortars, 58 60 millimeter mortars, and over 35,000 grenade launchers and small arms. Now here's the kicker. This is the ammunition. Over 2,155 millimeter artillery rounds. Over 7,000 precision-guided 155 millimeter artillery rounds. Over 14,155 millimeter rounds of the remote anti-armor system, the RAM system. 100,000 rounds of third-party produced 125 millimeter tank ammunition. 50,000 rounds of 152 contracted artillery rounds, 40,130 millimeter, 40,122 millimeter, 60,122 millimeter grad rockets, 500,105 millimeter artillery rounds, 10,203 millimeter artillery rounds, over 345,000 mortar rounds, over 1,800,000 rounds of 25 millimeter ammo. Those are for Bradleys. Over 300 million rounds of small arms ammunition. Let me say that again. Over 300 100 million rounds of small arm ammunition, claymores and anti-personnel munitions, C4 explosives and demolition equipment, over 100,000 sets of body armor and helmets, cold weather gear, and a host of miscellaneous equipment and training. The financial aid is just astronomical, with billions marked off in 1 billion, 560 million, 350 million, 200 million, 200 million, 13.6 billion, and it just goes on. So, and that's just the United States. What I just read off was just what the United States has contributed to the Ukrainian military thus far. And again, you're talking about, given the tanks, the artillery, and everything else that has been delivered, again, you could equip a European army, which essentially the U.S. is doing. So that's what we have for today. Again, no major territorial changes. The Ukrainians are being kind of quiet, as are the Russians. Neither side is really able to conduct any form of large-scale offensive operations. We've seen the Ukrainians try it several times down here south of Orikhiv, and they've been driven back each time. And at the same time, we have seen the Russians attempt operations as well, east and south of Kupiansk, north of Seversk, and not a huge amount of gains for the Russians as well. We think the size and scope have been similar. But again, the Ukrainians are using those Western brigades to try and break through these main outer Russian defensive lines, and thus far, again, have made very, very little headway, as you can see here on this pro-Ukrainian mapping service I am currently using. So that's where we set for the day. Again, thank you for joining us. More to come very, very soon. And as always, have a good day.